Say bien? No, that's good.
No.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Ariana. I don't know how to start these now that the 49ers lost the Super Bowl because I feel like my intro is too happy. I have to be like, hello, friends. This is a dark and sad day. My name is Ashley Ariana, joined by Jose Sanchez, writer. You got to go follow him because he has been bringing the best content this last week. Gave Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilkes the game plan. They did not listen to him, but he was in Vegas trying to right their wrongs. Hi, Jose. How are you? And we're going to start out with just how you're doing. Can you tell me how to say, you said gracias, which is thank you. So how do I say you're welcome? First
De
of all,
nada.
de nada. I knew that. Did you know that I took Spanish in high school for 2 years? I didn't
Yeah, you
know
told
that.
me and you suck.
How was Vegas? Aside from the 49ers losing. How was all of it? You went to you show everyone your magazine. You were just showing me.
Oh yeah, it's a program. This is the program that they hand at
Sorry.
every desk for a media. I'm pretty sure they didn't get one for like people in the stands. So that's my second one now because obviously I was in the one in Miami at Hard Rock. So yeah, it's another one
Which
to the
stadium is
collection.
nicer, Miami or Vegas?
Oh, Vegas, the heck. Which Hard Rock is a
Hard.
cool stadium, but honestly, the best stadium I've ever been to was Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. That Falcon Stadium is
Really?
sweet. I love it.
Well,
It's
I wouldn't have
awesome.
guessed that.
I think it's also because like it actually feels spacious where Allegiant is like so compact and tight. I think it's actually like one of the smaller stadiums in the NFL. Someone was telling me, and I was like, that's a good point because that land that the stadium was built on isn't necessarily spacious. Whereas Mercedes Benz, it feels like the concourses are wider, everything, the seats feel standing, and everything felt like a good seat. Which it was a good seat. I was in the 400. That's pretty much where the aux press box is at. So yeah, Vegas was nice. I
was gonna ask, what did you do? Because you said that, at first you didn't have a place to, because you got free tickets. I don't want to.
Oh yeah, someone didn't. Well, not tickets, credentials. Like, basically, no one.
You were able to be in the Super Bowl, but not in the press box, right?
Well, there's two press boxes. There's the main press box and the auxiliary press box, where they basically turn a few of the 400 sections into desks. So I was basically much up there because a lot of people apply to these, but they never show up. So I pretty much was able to. It's almost like being on standby for an airport. So that's basically what I did.
You're so cool.
But yeah, that week was cool. It was draining. I was tired as hell. I'm still kind of feeling the effects of it. And honestly, other than 2 nights, I didn't really drink or do anything like that. It was just a grind. But I'll say this.
I was watching your Instagram stories. You were turning up. I heard you
on Thursday. No, on Friday. On Friday or Thursday. On 2 days. Yeah, Tuesday and then Thursday or Friday. One of those 2 days, whichever day. I lost all track of days. It went by so fast. But I will say that the best.
Vegas is weird with the days because everything looks the same. So I feel like, and you're
especially when it was ugly ass
you're
weather.
there with the Super Bowl, you're asking questions every day, so it all blends together.
But I'll end it on this that so as you know, but I don't think everyone who watches knows that I was the lead guy for our site, and I used to be credentialed and go there all the time. And one of the players, the first player who I ever really talked to a lot, off and on the record, and I feel responsible for kind of discovering him, was Dre Greenlaw. So I haven't really seen him in 4 years, right? And this is my first time being credentialed, at least in terms of being with the players. I've been to training camp practices and stuff like that, but there's no necessarily interviewing situations in terms of the locker room, especially because this last year was the real locker room availability.
Especially after COVID, right?
So I approached him on Wednesday or Thursday, one of those two. Oh, Wednesday. And off the bat, he just says, "Yeah, I remember you, bro. I remember you." And it's funny thing. He says, it's crazy. I never remember any of you media guys, never. But you, I remember. And he says, I used to ask great questions to him. And that he remembered, he cited, I forgot what question he cited that he remembers that I asked him.
You asked some freaking great questions.
Which is funny because I'm in my head, I'm like, damn, I don't even remember that question. How do you remember that question? I'm the one that asked it. So, yeah, so he was cool all week. I won't necessarily say things we talked about other than that, and whatever else I interviewed him officially. But yeah, that was pretty cool and dope. And then just the other opportunities, I got to talk to other players. So yeah, your boy's coming up.
I'm so proud of you, first of all. And second of all, heartbreaking for Dre Greenlaw. But I agree. Like,
My heart
you're
sunk
saying
on
you
that one.
don't understand how he remembers your questions. I feel like I understand because just being a fan and watching some of the questions that were made by the media, and then you were lucky enough. Your question was it was to Charvarius Ward and then to also Mahomes. Both of them went viral on social media. So I felt like you were actually asking game plan questions or game specific questions that fans wanted to know, aside from people who were saying like, do you want to get friggin' Brock Purdy's face tattooed on your ass or whatever weird shit.
That same guy, so I was behind him when he asked Mahomes that. So that same guy was there for Chiefs availability. He was asking Chiefs players the Mahomes question. He applied the Brock Purdy face tattoo to Mahomes, to his players. And before I asked my Mahomes question, I literally see his notes. His notes on his phone are like right next to me, like glaring. The freaking lights are like beaming off my freaking eyes because his brightness was 100%. And I just read like he's over there rehearsing. I'm like, what the hell is he rehearsing? Like, who rehearses the questions? Which I know you do your thing, but me, I just go off the dome. So freaking, I see it says like, I see what he says. And I'm like, oh my God, he's about to ask it. And he asks like, Mahomes, I asked a bunch of your teammates,
What? How did
who
he
they get
write?
the
I
face
love
tattoo
that
on
in
your
his
thigh
notes. It's
or a
like
tattoo on your face
tattoo.
somewhere in their body. Half of them said yes, half of them say no. But shouldn't they? But shouldn't they say yes because it means a championship? And kid you not, Mahomes for 1.5 seconds, looks at this guy who asked that question, the same question to Purdy and all these other players, looks at him for 1.5 seconds, dead in the eye, like, get the fuck out of my face. Like literally, I felt it. I felt it being me next to this guy. I felt some of that eye contact, and I'm like, God, I'm getting secondhand. Go fuck yourself, pretty much. So, like in my head,
You're
I'm like,
I'm not
so after 1.5
associated.
seconds, he's like literally staring him dead in the eye, and he goes, "Oh yeah, of course, bro. Yeah, they should all get it. Yeah, why not? Yeah, that stuff." And I'm like, "Oh my God."
He had to like get himself to say the fake response, but just there was a second where he had to could not suspend his disbelief.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Speaking really quick, I just want to bring up these two comments. Marco says you flipped him off, and then also says you have
Oh, he saw
great,
that. Damn
good
it.
quote coverage.
It says have a great day, have a nice day, and then you drink it. That's why I'm trying to drink it off kilter because I need my coffee, man. Freaking, I'm still recovering from last week. Shoot, like I'm just tired.
Like 3:30 and you're drinking coffee?
Yeah,
No.
my second cup.
You're not gonna sleep.
I'm not going to sleep in 3 hours. The hell?
Aren't you supposed to like stop drinking coffee like 8 hours before?
Honestly, I can drink coffee at 9. I'll go to sleep at midnight still, to be honest. So
That's crazy. Have you ever had that like you had that Italian dessert? I had it over the weekend. I went out to dinner with a friend, and it's like vanilla ice cream, and it has
yeah,
espresso on it.
yeah. Well, I'll wait on it. Isn't it on the side? I've had that
No,
before.
it's like in the same bowl. It's
Oh,
like
what
a
the hell?
bowl
Okay, no.
with like espresso poured over vanilla ice cream. So good. I don't eat dairy, and I was out to dinner with my
That sounds
friend.
like a disaster for the toilet, to be honest. So
Well, I don't eat dairy, so definitely you're right
dairy
about
and
that.
coffee and espresso shot? Are you kidding me? Not only you're gonna okay. Anyways, we need to go to the game. This is getting a little gross.
But so Jose was in Vegas. We are all very proud of him. Next year I'm gonna join Jose for the Super Bowl if the 49ers are back, which I don't know if they're gonna be back. Jose, I feel sad. I think this game was so funny because if the 49ers would have won, I think my takeaway would have been like, how do we run it back? Like, I think that the team, if they are able to retain the right pieces, I think that they could make it again. And now that they lost, I feel like the exact opposite. I'm like, I don't care. They need to make major sweeping changes. My friends who I'm staying with, they're not big football people. And he kind of said that. He was like, oh, this is so weird. Like if they would have won, everyone would have been happy and you would want to like keep everyone, but they lose one game and now you like want to tear it all down. And I was like, well, the thing is with this organization, like they've been running it back and trying to make it happen with this team so often. And they kind of got the best that they've ever gotten. Like they had the best talent, the best quarterback that they've had so far. They have supposedly, this genius offensive play caller. The defense had kind of struggled all year, but especially in that first half, came out with tons of energy and effort. I think if we could have seen into the future and seen the defensive performance, I think people would have been more than happy with it. They definitely stepped up. Chase Young had the game of his life on the freaking last game of the year. So yeah, how did you feel? I know that you were talking about you just rewatched the Super Bowl, so maybe you have less of a emotional perspective now that you've seen it. Brandon Aiyuk, George Kittle, two stars, offensive weapons, guys that you feel like you absolutely must get the ball in their hands. I think George Kittle had 4 yards on 2 targets. Brandon Aiyuk, I think you said, got his second catch in the third quarter. How did you feel rewatching that about let's talk about the game as a whole, and then we'll go to maybe the obvious. We'll talk about Brock Purdy, and Kyle Shanahan, but just your takeaway rewatching the game and being there. When you were watching it there, like, did you, because now I'm asking my own question or answering my own question, but like because you watched it with like a less emotional perspective when you rewatched it. When I was watching the game, I thought that the 49ers could win all the way. Like when they were playing overtime, I was like, they're still going to win. In hindsight, I think they lost it in that first quarter when they dominated, but they didn't get up enough. And so like in hindsight, I feel like I should have felt like they lost the game when they didn't capitalize on those opportunities early on. But while I was watching it, I didn't have that perspective. I thought they were going to win all the way up until like way into overtime. So how did you feel watching the game the first time around in Vegas? And then once again last night?
Remember, I've been telling you all season long since you first started having me, like in week 3 or week 2, about you could tell which 49ers game it's going to be based on the first drive. And you're watching them. They're averaging 9.6 yards per play. And it's like, oh, God, these boys came to play. It's going to be one of those games, huh? Touchdown bound incoming. I was confident in the touchdown. Now, you could play the objective route or the safe route and be like, well, at least 3 points is guaranteed. But to me, it's like, nah, bro, they were going to score a touchdown on that one. I'm very confident. So I'm going to act on that presumption. That was a touchdown drive. And then McCaffrey coughed it up. He coughed it up. And that's the no-no. Your best players in that pretty much the whole game did not come to show up, or in terms of they did not play their best game. The other teams, the Chiefs defense had those players' numbers more than you did. And so in a way, it's like that greedy game was not shocking because for the same reason, every game, the 49ers are a predictable team. And it's always based on the first drive. If they don't score or look dominant look dominant, it's so obvious. And if it ends in a field goal, but especially a turnover, or they punt it, then you know it's going to be that game. And exactly was that game. The Super Bowl is actually an easy game to always predict. I actually had the Chiefs winning by 3, 24-27. What was the score? Can you remind me? Anyways.
Wait, did you say 24-27?
I said 24-27 Chiefs. I wrote it in my game.
I said that.
But yeah, so to me, it was obvious. But honestly, once they get up to 10-0, it's like, okay, cool. They're great. But okay, I will say, even though I predicted that game to be a 3-point game in favor of the Chiefs, my logic to it was pretty much, the bulk of it was pretty much like destroyed because I thought it was going to be the defensive failures. And sure enough, it was complete opposite. It was offensive failures. That defense had the best game of their season,
If someone would have came up to you and said the 49ers defense holds Patrick Mahomes to 19 points in regulation.
They win.
Yeah.
They win. And because at that point,
I'm like, okay, you would have been on your gambling shit. You would have been in Vegas. Like,
if you told me like, hey, they're going to score 19 points in regulation, I'm like, oh shit, Niners 28-19 or 27-19 or something like that, because I feel like if you're stonewalling them like that, and you tell me that you had 2 turnovers, I'm thinking they're going to at least capitalize on one of them. They didn't on any of them. And by the turnover quarter, they were 2 of 10 on third down conversions. They couldn't do anything. Now, part of that is also because they weren't in favorable third downs, other than the last 2 third downs, 3rd and 4s, right? So honestly, you say you thought the Niners were in it even in overtime. I thought the game was over as soon as they failed that. They failed at the 2-minute warning in the 4th quarter when they didn't get that 3rd and 4. And you follow me on Instagram, you saw me say like, and I even tweeted it saying like, Patrick Mahomes, 2 minutes ago, two timeouts. I've seen this movie before. You guys fucked up. You guys messed up. That was your chance. You get that first down, game over. Game over because you have 3 downs to work with. They're going to use 2 of the timeouts to stop the clock. And at that point, it would be like 1 minute, less than 1 minute for him to work. And maybe even score a touchdown. So to me, you screwed up there. That offense could have made up for a whole game's worth of failures. And and just underwhelming and from getting punked, because it kind of felt like a mix of both. There was a mix of the Chiefs punked you, you guys failed to execute on the very few times to let you up, and also at the same time, it's like Kyle Shanahan, dude, like if your guys are struggling against the secondary, which I was saying many times to good media friends of mine, like they asked me our prediction, who do you think is going to win? I'm like the Chiefs, and I would always mention the defense, but I also said like, hey, I'm a little also like, let's not pencil in like dominance from the Niners offense here. Like they haven't looked good since that, even starting from the Ravens game. I really think they lost their momentum going into that ever since the Ravens beat them up, because even the next week they beat they have a pretty good game against Commanders. They didn't look good in the first half. Brock Purdy in this offense has not had looked good for more than a half. They couldn't put 3 quarters down.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about that. We said like to beat the Chiefs that they would have to have 4 quarters.
And
the fucked up thing is like the fucked up thing is like, actually, I think the reason, like, if you wake up and you're a 49ers player or you're Kyle Shanahan, but like what really eats you alive is like they didn't play, dominant football kind of in any of the quarters, and they still were that close. Like they still were that close. They just didn't capitalize. Like in the beginning when it felt like they were more dominant. You have penalties by Trent Williams, a fumble by Christian McCaffrey.
Back-to-back penalties by Williams. Like these guys, do not tell me nerves did not play a factor. Do not tell me that. Nerves played a factor in that one. And didn't like Raymond McLeod or someone like
fumble.
And they covered it back up.
Yeah. The ball hit Darnell Luter, and so then
no. And earlier in the game, I think it happened too. Like I think he someone coughed it up real quick. Or maybe I'm thinking of the Chiefs. I don't know. But the point is, like, there was just whatever. The point is, like, dude, like, what's going on here? Like, there was like your best players are not being your best players.
Yeah. They got Patrick Mahomes to turn the ball over for the first time, I think, in 6 playoff games. Did nothing with it. Just like really disappointing, because you think in the Super Bowl, that's when you're going to play your best game. And it feels like the 49ers were kind of like the reason that I think you and I both assumed that the Chiefs would win is it felt like the Chiefs were kind of ascending and the 49ers had been descending. And it's like they played bad. Like they didn't play mediocre. They played really bad on all 4 quarters. There's mistakes that you can point to. Also just like coaching, like execution, but also coaching wise, I felt like Kyle Shanahan consistently was outcoached by Spagnuolo. I know that he came out and had good words for Brock Purdy, said that he was really impressed with his performance, that they had to make in-game adjustments. And to me, that's kind of like a hint, like Kyle Shanahan, why are you not adjusting with him? He
gets outcoached because, especially on those 2/3 down and 4s, and that pretty much goes like when the Chiefs started really blitzing him, which was what, like in the second half, Purdy was, dude, like give him better protection, give him more numbers. But the thing is, like the couple times he does do it, I'm watching George Kittle get destroyed by this linebacker named Chanel, some nobody. You're letting nobody's beat your star players. The guy was an all-pro. And I'm sorry, after this game, I never want to hear a goddamn thing about George Kittle being the better tight end than Travis Kelce, because on his down year, Travis Kelce does more than George Kittle.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear crap about that. I don't hear crap about run blocking. Great, he's an impactful player. He's a good player. He's not Travis Kelce's level. He's never been. He never will. We just saw it. We just saw it where he did nothing in the first half, and the Chiefs said, let's get him involved. Kyle Shanahan was like,
an opportunity to you just watched the game, so maybe you know what I'm talking about. It was a sideline throw. It was a perfect throw by Brock Purdy. And if George Kittle does not get open, but I do think if he would have turned his head around like a second sooner, he still probably could have reached back and like grabbed the ball, because it was kind of like a back shoulder. Even though he was definitely like not completely open, I think Brock Purdy gave him like a one-on-one ball, and George Kittle just like doesn't turn around, and the ball runs out of bounds.
I think I know which one you're talking about. That was on the left sideline, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I remember like, and Tony Romo says it too, like that was a choice route. He either gets the chance to go inside or he could just run it up the field. And I think he was trying to too hard to just be like, look, I'm going to run up the field. And so it sounded like it was a bad choice. It sounded like he should have really gone in. But to me, it's just like, what my takeaway too from that game is Purdy played a better game than I thought. I thought he was fine and played well, and I'm like, okay, no, he played really well, all things considered. Now he had like a B minus type of game. I'll give him a B, but it's like that's not enough, dude. You still weren't.
Yeah, MVP. You have to have a flashy play.
Yeah, that wasn't like your top 6 game of the year. You didn't play. We've seen you play way better. And again, credit to the Chiefs. And Kyle Shanahan did him no favors. Just like in this, look, I'm not trying to harp on Purdy because again, should have played better. But to me, everything's on Kyle Shanahan. You don't get your guy on the run more. It's clear that they're blitzing. Why don't you put enough on? It just really felt like he was just getting sunned a lot by Steve Spagnuolo. And it's like this narrative about Purdy can't play good against elite defense. Well, guess what? Neither can Kyle Shanahan. All right. And all of a sudden it's like, the Chiefs have been known as like, one of the better defenses. But I'll say this, Kyle Juszczyk in his postgame was asked, was that the best defense you faced all season? He said no. And so it's funny that I'm seeing like excuses made for the 49ers. Like, hey, look, the Niners have a better offense than the last Super Bowl, their best offense in years. And so do the Chiefs. It's like, yeah, but even the players are literally saying that was not the best defense they faced all year. And so look, to me, you have an offense that had 5-6 all pros and their all defense had 2 all pros. You have a great MVP finalist at quarterback. Why are you getting punked? Why are you getting punked by these no-name guys? Chris Jones, I get it. He's going to dominate. He's going to do this. I get it. They have a solid linebacker, Nick Bolton.
Deebo Samuel. I mean, I've been an advocate for Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel. I mean, we just talked about George Kittle kind of getting sunned by like not like a guy that he should far outplay.
A guy named Chanel. I'm watching Ted Wynn of The Athletic. He does fantastic breakdowns more than anyone in this world. And it's just like that guy, they made that Chanel guy look like the second coming of Dick Buttkiss. It was insane to me. Like, what? You're getting sunned by this guy? Trent Williams getting driven back by Trent McDuffie, a quarterback? This is like the equivalent of last 2 weeks that we're giving Nick Bosa and young crap for getting walled off by Josh freaking Reynolds or Romeo Dubes. Like, what the hell? What went on with that offense, man? It was so insane to me. Like, you got out physical. It was like I watched Michigan against UW in the national championship game when you had this high level of physicality versus the other one. I've never seen the 49ers being out physical that badly before. Well, I guess we kind of have this year.
Especially by the Chiefs team. Like, we didn't expect when we were talking about reasons that the Chiefs would overtake the 49ers, we didn't put physicality in that. Like, no. I didn't think that the Chiefs were going to be more physical, especially like if you did, you thought, okay, their defensive line, but I didn't think they were going to sun Deebo Samuel. Brandon Aiyuk barely got open. I know that I think he could have been targeted more, but he was also struggling to get open. We're going to talk about him more. But Deebo Samuel, I was like extremely disappointed with. Trent McDuffie, there was a route. Do you know the one I'm talking about where Trent McDuffie runs the route for Deebo? And that's the one problem with like within this offense, those like anticipation throws. Brock Purdy still threw that ball, even though like when you look at the wider view of it, Juwan Jennings ends up getting open, but like the ball was supposed to go to Deebo Samuel, but Deebo doesn't get open. And I don't necessarily blame Brock Purdy because he like throws the ball before Deebo doesn't get, like, I think he expects Deebo to win, but yeah, so you're right. Trent Williams, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, George Kittle, all guys who, Christian McCaffrey, all guys who did not play their best game, and you can't have every single one of your stars not play. Like when I thought the 49ers were going to win, I was like, Juwan Jennings is going to be MVP. You're not going to win against the Chiefs when Juwan Jennings is your best player. Like that's just not. No offense to Juwan Jennings.
Like the Chiefs' best players were better than your best players, which is insane to me because a lot of their best players were not getting as touted as your guys' all season long. And that's why pretty much Juwan Jennings was such a factor. It's because, look, our third best player is better than their third best secondary corner or whatever defensive player. Because Aiyuk actually won some battles and Purdy either didn't see him or didn't hit him. I know he's getting some slack about that he slowed down on that route. I'm kind of I don't really think he slowed down. My thoughts when I first watched it live and then rewatching it back, I'm like, I don't think he slows down. I just don't think he knows where the ball went because he's looking to his left. He thinks the ball's coming this way, and I'm pretty sure he's like, what the hell? And he's like, sees it, and by the time he sees it, it's like already like 4 yards in front of him. So that wasn't a great pass by Purdy by any means. But I think it just felt like when you're slowing down and almost like opening up, it's like that slows down. That's why they say like don't look back too early because it slows down. You're running. Or they say the same thing about running back. Hey, if you're running, don't look behind you, see who's chasing. Just go straight ahead. And if you get caught, you get caught because those little distractions pretty much bring you from 100 to 90 or 80%. So I thought he could have played better, but I feel like it was just he wasn't seen. They just couldn't find like consistent connection. Because look, pretty much what I did watching the replay is like most of his catches came against when he got manned up on the safety. McDuffie and Snead were freaking man. We're
But then
covering them
also
guys
that's
like
kind
bubble
of on
wrap.
Kyle Shanahan, right? Like why, like if that's working, why not scheme up more of those?
I guess it's just that's just part maybe of the coverage is being it's just plus or minus coverage, right? Plus or minus plays. Like we want to be a plus to their minus, or it just didn't mesh well. When if you would call play, Spags had a perfect play, and it's just it just didn't work out that way. And the times where Shanahan probably does, the offensive line can't open up lanes. These guys don't. Debo Samuel had a couple of bad drops that game. Bad drops. They were tough catches for sure. But like, look, man, you're getting paid all this money. What the hell are you doing, man?
You're supposed to be the
The
number
one in
one wide
overtime,
receiver.
I remember I had gone to the bathroom real quick. I missed the first play where he throws to Debo, and I can't really see the replays in that stadium were awful. I'm over here thinking that it was Ray McLeod's fault when it turns out Daryl Luter got hit in the ankle, and I'm like, but they don't show that part. They just show him trying to scoop it up. Anyways, I look back at that game. I'm like, whoa, that's a freaking dime by Brock. If anything, that was probably his best throw of the game, and he doesn't catch it. But I could see how he doesn't catch it because the defender puts his hand in and kind of blocks some of the view. So when you have a distorted or lack of focus on when the trying to look the catch in is what they call it. Look the catch in. It kind of messes him up. But look, you're supposed to be this elite guy, but he's not. That's not Debo. He's not. We know he's not a pure wide receiver. We know he's not that go route guy, and they did that a lot. It kind of felt like Kyle in a way got a little tight. And that's one thing about him is his drop back passing game. And I love hearing this from John Middlecoff. His drop back passing game is not good. And you mentioned it on the route, like, oh, that route where Chet McDuffie runs his route. Yes, because it's all anticipatory. Like, it's so easily sequenced. They really probably studied it and knew what they were doing. Like, look, they're just going to keep doing this. They're going to go and cut inside, or especially Debo, he just rounds out his routes because he never does a jab step to the left and then comes inside. He just goes straight and just rails through the defender every single time. So yeah, like that drop pass backing game is not necessarily good, especially if the run's not there. Because now it's like, cool, now we can account for this. And again, it wasn't easy because early downs, like you're facing a 2nd and 9. I was like, great, now we're definitely in a passing situation. So everything, like, dude, Chiefs has had an answer. They executed well player wise, and Steve Spagnuolo had the great call every single time. It's just like, even with all that, they're still in the game. That was crazy to me.
It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I have a question, and this comment kind of brings us in. You two are talking about how bad Kyle prepared his team for a game, not the rules of the game. That's Kyle's job. Stop giving him excuses. This is such an angry comment. I don't think we're giving him. I don't think we're giving him excuses. I think we haven't really gotten into talking about Kyle Shanahan. But my takeaway is that I'm very disappointed with Kyle Shanahan's game plan. I think Jose is also explaining that Spagnuolo ate him up.
Yeah, he got stunned.
We're also, player execution is also an issue, but we both agree that these players weren't set up to be their best. And in a lot of situations, they were unprepared. We're definitely going to talk about the overtime decision.
Ashley, think about this. The guy who showed up and had his side ready to play and executing perfectly is the guy who's about to get fired, probably, Steve Wilks. Steve Wilks is probably going to get let go.
I know.
Kyle Shanahan
they were asked
was non-committal. Yep. I don't care that he says, "Oh, I expect every coach back," because 2 times he got asked today, "What about Steve Wilks?" And then follows up, "What about Steve Wilks?" He says the same thing. "Oh, well, I got to review it through the week." Next question.
I have to watch the tape and
every
talk
coach.
to him later.
I expect every coach back. Never once. Yes, he is back. And don't give me that bullshit like, "Oh, well, he said it." No, he's generalizing. We have seen Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch both say about Trey Lance trade or being benched, about Debo Samuel
in
trade,
that same press conference about Brandon Aiyuk.
They all say the same thing. I expect him to be here for a long time. He's coming back. They all do that. For Wilks, he doesn't.
In this press conference, the difference between the way they addressed Brandon Aiyuk and the difference between they addressed Steve Wilks. With Steve Wilks, it was, vague. I don't know yet. I have to watch the film. We're all going to talk later. I expect everyone to be back. Very non-committal. Asked about Brandon Aiyuk. We expect Brandon Aiyuk to be here long term. They could have said, we expect, like the reporter was clear. Do you think, is Steve Wilks coming back next year? Yes, Steve Wilks is coming back next year. Yes, I expect him to be back. I have to review the film, but I expect him to be back. Those are all things he could have said that he did not say. and we've heard him talk about players when I think that's an excellent example when they're talking about Nick Bosa, when they were talking about people they expected to be back. And that is not how they addressed Steve Wilks, which I find very disappointing, but also not surprising. How did you feel in the game when Kyle Shanahan, he calls a timeout and kind of, in my opinion, shows Steve Wilks up a little bit?
You know what's funny? Like when the game was happening live, I didn't even notice that because obviously I'm part of the game story. I'm taking notes as the game's going on, and like the overtime, having to rewrite some things. I didn't finish those final 3 to 4 minutes in that game. Kyle said today, like, oh well, one of our guys is gassed. I didn't like the look the Chiefs had. He didn't hesitate on his answer for that. But the sound of like everyone that I know of that I listened to the one podcast, like it sounds like yeah, he overruled his guy. I'm like, wow, if that's consensus that he did, that he called a timeout. And I think something about like didn't Shanahan like was running too, and like he called. Actually, I remember seeing that. Yeah. Actually, I do remember
like
seeing
made
that
a
part.
Scene of it.
He kind of made a scene like what the are you calling here? So whether the call was right, we'll never know or not. But the point is, and whether Kyle Shanahan was right, like, dude, Kyle, that probably would have worked if we all saw it in hindsight. Like, wow, he's gonna call that. It doesn't matter because if you're a head coach and you have to micromanage the game like that, that says it all to me. You don't want to be
like
paranoid.
You just don't have trust in him.
Yeah, you don't want to be
like
that.
You can't keep a guy you don't trust.
And especially because like he brought him down from the booth mid-season. That already is something there, you know. And I'll say this: one of the things that I feel like when I was talking with defensive players, that's all I did, right? I just mainly talk to defensive players throughout the week. Is like no one really credits Wilks for any of their success this year. I asked Charvarius Ward on that Super Bowl media Monday night, 7-8 days ago. Charvarius Ward, you said in the OTAs that, you know, Steve Wilks is here, and you said like, hey, he has a defensive background. Maybe he can get me to All-Pro. And he got to All-Pro. And when I asked him that, like, how much did you credit Wilks? He basically says like, oh yeah, he pretty much said like, dude, that was all me. Like when I put my mind to it, he didn't say anything. He gave him like some light credit, but he pretty much said, I just know if I put my head into it, if I lock in, I could accomplish anything. It's like, oh, okay. Well, in ATAs, you're trying to hype him up, but now it's like, okay, like what the hell? I'm asking Diomedor Lenore, like, hey, what do you credit to like you having a good transition to outside inside? Nothing about Wilks. Ambry Thomas, how do you feel about playing good ever since you got reinstalled? Nothing about Wilks. Nothing was about this guy. I think they view him as an outsider. That's the way I kind of took it away that week. And it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Like if you think about the way that the players and Kyle Shanahan spoke about Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, it felt like players deferred to them. And because if you think about the Jauan Jennings handoff that happened, right? Everyone in the media kind of after they made Jauan Jennings run in the NFC Championship, everyone was like, that's crazy. But what's actually like, it's actually good that happened because when Brock Purdy was asked, like, why didn't you guys change the play call when that crazy play call came in? Brock Purdy and George Kittle both sorry, there was a blender going off and I was like, what was just happening? They both said that my brain broke for 1 second. My bad. They both said I'm just thinking about the smoothie. There's a smoothie that's like really going off right now. To be honest. Okay, good. I'm glad. They basically said that they, like, even if they thought it was a wild play call, they have trust in Kyle Shanahan. And so they were like, okay, we're going to execute this and we're going to try our hardest. And if he thinks it's going to work, then we believe it's going to work. The problem with Steve Wilks is because he's constantly been undermined by both Kyle Shanahan, by Nick Bosa. He's always had to like adjust to what the players wanted or what Kyle Shanahan wanted. So like, obviously the players aren't going to have faith in his game plan or like his opinion. You know what I mean? And I think as soon as that stuff, like as soon as he had to go out and wear the losses, even though the friggin' every game that the 49ers have lost, they've scored 17 points or 19 points. Like it's can definitely be accredited to an offensive issue, but every time the defense has been blamed. And so to me, it's not surprising that he might be used as a scapegoat for sure. Cause like the number one thing is the buy-in, right? And it just feels like the players aren't bought in. Feels like he wanted to be up in the booth. They wanted him to be down. They wanted him to start blitzing less. he started blitzing less. Like anything, I saw a report on Twitter today that the game plan was actually like heavily made by Kyle Shanahan, and that Kyle Shanahan and a separate coach made adjustments during the Super Bowl, and like Steve Wilkes was more just like the play caller at that point. So yeah, why are you going to have him there? He's been an outsider this whole time.
And even if Wilkes actually did have full autonomy over game plans and all that such, and he is the failure in this, who hired him? Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, also
That's
goes
where I
back to
get
Kyle
like I'm
Shanahan.
seeing Mike Silverite stories
Like
like
you
don't
hired
blame
a
Kyle
guy
Shanahan for
who
this
didn't
loss. I'm
follow
like
your system.
no, we'll blame Kyle Shanahan for this loss. I'll blame him for that loss. Who drafted Spencer Burford? Who drafted Colton McKivitz? The freaking head coach did. So even if some of the game plans was correct for a part of the game, or even most of the game, if you want to go that far, which I don't think it was, and he just got outbeat, it's like, no, dude, like, here's the thing. If you got beat, you didn't have the right call then. You know, like, what the hell? Like, I'm as a UFC watcher, like, I'm not gonna, you don't give credit to the guy who, like, hey, credits, like, oh, he got beat. Like, no, like, you lost. You were a failure for that sense. The guy was better than you, and that's your fault. Like, what is this? Like, hey, sometimes you gotta get beat. Yeah, sometimes you get beat, which is your fault. You know, you weren't better than him. That's not telling you to be better than them, whether it's because of the way you built your team, the way you were in that moment. So to me, I just hate that whole thing. Like, don't blame Kyle Shanahan. Like, no, he got beat, and he got beat. There's no excuses, you know. And I will say this about him is that whole third quarter going with only one handoff to McCaffrey, I had no problem with it, really. Even watching it back, I still had no problem with it because they just could not run the freaking ball. They couldn't do anything. I'm seeing in my group chats, like my cousins, like, run the damn ball, Kyle. I'm seeing Twitter, like, it's not that easy.
I know
The
that he
offensive line
averaged
couldn't push
3.5.
anyone. Trent Williams was struggling to push people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was no success.
But it felt like by not at least trying, it felt like that took away the play action, and then they were just left with like the worst part of Kyle Shanahan's.
A couple of times they did do play action. There's a guy like pretty much already crashing down to Purdy. They made an emphasis. Play action. If you're the backside guy, go straight for that guy. Because the odds of McCaffrey doing the cutback, I guess they just had faith for the other person who had that edge to really hold it. And they did. The Chiefs were so disciplined and knew how to play on every shoulder and match that aggression or be better than them. And it was just insane to me. And again, look, to me, it's like credit to Spags because you got that linebacker Chanel, who's not even a Pro Bowl caliber guy or nothing that people, I guarantee you, no 49er fans knew about him. And maybe even some Chiefs fans didn't even know about him, that he was making play after play after play. There's a whole freaking thread on Twitter by Ted Wynn about like 7 plays that he made. It's like that he made a difference. Punking Kittle, you know, making like, what the hell? Like this guy, you let those guys beat you? Come on, it's one thing you're like Chris
like,
Jones.
that's embarrassing.
You let all these other guys really like make your day hard. That's insanity.
Did you hear Kyle Shanahan in his final like press conference? He was asked this right after the game, like, was he happy with his offensive performance? And his response was, there was a lot of plays. And then later on, he said, the only thing that I would regret is if there was something that I wasn't prepared for. In his final press conference just now, he said that he thought that he had an excellent or a good game plan going into it so that he doesn't feel the need to like criticize or change anything because as long as he felt confident going into the game, that's all that he can control. I was kind of let down by that. Has your faith in Kyle Shanahan that he can, like, do you think that he will ever win a Super Bowl with the 49ers? Ever.
You know, it's kind of hard to, even the general's point for the 49ers is that my confidence in them winning for the next couple of years is very low now. Because if this was not the year, then when? You know, you had the NFC pretty weak.
NFL as a whole was down.
You had, the NFL, the Chiefs were out of their league too this year. That's the worst year we've ever seen Mahomes and the Chiefs. You finally got your quarterback. You got your best running back. Your defense is still a pretty damn good one. What was there holding you? I mean, look, you played games where even if you didn't play your A and B game and you still were winning and you had a chance to win, like that says a lot about how talented you guys were, and you couldn't win it. You couldn't. That's where I see that tweet that I'm getting killed for is like that I quoted that someone said was, hey, the Brock Purdy era is like the Jimmy G era. That doesn't mean that's not a slight at Brock. That's not saying Brock played bad. That's not saying they would have.
But you're right. That
Anything
game,
about
it
that.
was like the same.
It's the
Sorry.
same feeling of terms of being runner-ups. That's all. After this game, I can't take the 49ers serious anymore. They're glorified runner-ups now. They're that meme where the guy is flipping everyone off, celebrating, and it turns out he's in 6th place. Those are the 49ers. Like, have you ever seen that meme where he's like, the Olympic staircase where it's like 1st and 2nd and 3rd, 4th place? Like, he's just where you're just celebrating that you made this far. It's like, we were so close. And you think about it, that's kind of how the 49ers have operated. I saw that brilliant 30-second analysis or summarization that Vish Kumaran did the other day about, hey, look, the 49ers are the uncrowned champions. It's like, what? That kind of is their mentality. 2019 were almost there.
Brock Purdy freaking took a victory lap the week before the Super Bowl. Basically said that Kyle Shanahan had a lifetime contract.
It's just
like, even if you feel that way, don't come out before the Super Bowl and say that. To me, that's so premature.
They felt so accomplished already. Like it's just like, dude,
like giving themselves pats on the back. Like, the 49er fan base looks at the Cowboys and laughs when they're not that far off from them.
It's just glorious. I mean, one team can make it to the Super Bowl and NFC Championship, other team can only make it to playoffs. It's like, and of course, like the Niners are more successful, but it's like, dude, it's like you guys are where the Cowboys are glorified one and dones in the playoffs. You guys are glorified runner-ups in the NFC or the Super Bowl. That's all you guys are now. You're never good enough to get picked number 1. You're officially the almost woulda, shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I can't take them seriously now. Next year was literally the last year. I can feel the need that maybe they'll win it. Because that window is closing drastically right now. It's closing drastically.
Well, their players are getting their star players are getting old. What are they going to do? Dre Greenlaw's going to be out for a good majority of next year.
Probably not playing next year.
Eric Armstead missed 8 games the year prior to this year. Mixed 6 games this year with the plantar fasciitis.
Armstead's body's been breaking down for the last 2-3 years, though. His body's been breaking down, so he's officially become an unreliable player to me.
Torn meniscus, so he's getting off-season surgery. That has nothing to do with his foot, too. So those are two separate injuries.
I think another thing to look at it. Why my confidence?
Do you think Kittle was more injured than maybe he led on prior? Because I know that he missed everything except for the final practice. With that, he had like a toe injury, and like you said, he was getting locked up in that game.
Upper body. He probably tore his labrum, I think, or something like that. Because he was like,
hasn't he had a torn labrum for like 3 years and just never got?
So because he came in the locker room and like they asked him after post game, I was right next to him, like, just something we'll fix later. Just all you need to know is an upper body injury, and it's like, oh, okay, probably tore something, dislocated something, I don't know, but I think the other reason why my confidence next year is and going forward is especially we'll just hold on to 2024 is why it's like really low now is because other than the fact that. Well, I got to say 2 points. This is now your 3rd straight year in a row where you've been so close and you lost. It's this one, and obviously this one's devastating. 2019, you can be okay.
Like the players,
how do you will yourself out of the ashes?
Because you were there, right? So you were there for both. After you were there to like assess the vibe. So maybe I'm wrong because I'm assessing it like through a screen. But it felt like when they lost in Miami, George Kittle was like determined to get back there. Nick Bosa, heartbroken, felt wronged, felt like they should have won. Deebo Samuel was young and spunky and thought he was going to be back in the next year. Like the way they went out and partied, the way they talked about that game felt like they
partied that night. To win. They partied with Lil Wayne.
Yeah, partied with Lil Wayne that night. And they literally talked about that like they should have won, like they were wrong for not winning, and like they believe that they would be back and win the next year. I think Fred Warner has said something similar. I think now, like these young guys, even Fred Warner kind of talked about this. Like they've kind of like gone through the depths of the NFL of like constantly getting to either the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship. They see how hard it is, how much luck goes into it. Like the injury luck that they had this year was insane for the 49ers. Like when they were talking about this game, like a reporter, I think it was Eric Branch, like multiple times asked Nick Bosa basically to kind of like be like, it was bad, but like we're gonna get him next year. And Nick Bosa like could not do it. Like he was like so defeated. George Kittle so defeated. Like in their post games, it felt like they took this loss way more difficult, and like they would not say like,
They did.
we believe we're going to be back and do it next year. And obviously that's coming off the loss. Like I think Kyle Shanahan in his post game said that when everyone's back for spring, that he like imagines that the morale will be a lot different. You know, you hype yourself up again. But I just hadn't seen, you know, like I'm not going to say that they've lost faith in Kyle Shanahan, but it felt like the most defeated I've seen them so far. Like normally I feel like they have like a delusional confidence about themselves where you're like, you guys haven't won the championship. Why do you act like that? This one felt like it like settled into them where they were like, we're not good enough. Fuck. Like this was our best chance, our best team, our best health, and we did not win and the opportunities were there.
And you mentioned about how like they keep thinking like, oh, we're almost there, or they should have been it. Maybe that's why their effort in the last two games, and I mean, not including the Super Bowl, but the two playoff games, divisional and NFC Championship game, wasn't there for all four quarters because it's like, we're gonna be there anyways. Like kind of just like that arrogance, like dude, like you could see the difference in hunger from all the teams they faced. You know, all three of them. And that's pretty much not saying they had, you know, a lack of effort in the last game. I wouldn't say that for sure. I mean, I wouldn't say that at all, but it's like, it's just to me, again, when you're letting players who are no name players really make an impact on more than a couple of plays, that's when it's like, what's going on here? What is this? You know, like I don't get it anymore. And you mentioned the injuries. That's step number 2 about why I have no confidence in the Niners repeating next year, because you pretty much came in a year where Trent Williams was mostly healthy, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, McCaffrey actually put up another good healthy year. Nick Bosa, all these players, other than like, you know, Armstead.
The biggest injury was Hufanga, and Jair Brown had a freaking interception in the Super Bowl.
And they replaced them adequately well too. So it's like you had the best injury luck ever. And then now it's like, are you gonna get lucky again next year with that? And number 2, how do you build yourself up, pick up the pieces from being shattered from this? Because it's clear that this loss is definitely killing them. And I don't even want to say this loss. It's the compounding pile. It's the pile up of all your losses from the last 3 years, right? The Rams game was hurtful. Last year was like, we didn't have a chance. This year it comes in overtime. And especially because they all acknowledge that
like you get tired.
Details. Kyle Juszczyk mentioned too, like it was just a bunch of small details that we messed up on. And I think we all can acknowledge, like, while the Chiefs did win it, the Niners didn't win it, made it easy for them
they gave it away.
They kind of gave it away. So it's like, to me, it's like 60-40 Niners gave it away. Maybe even 70-30 Niners gave it away. That's where I get like, this year to me was an utter embarrassment from the 49ers. Disappointing. No excuses. I don't care if they had like one of the best secondaries in the league and they had Patrick Mahomes. You had them. If you tell any team in this league, all 32 teams in the league who won that Super Bowl, you tell them, hey, the Chiefs are going to put up 19 points. You're going to hold Patrick Mahomes to 1 touchdown in regulation. The 1 touchdown comes off deep in your red zone because you fumbled. You tell them that, they're all going to say yes. And this is where I say this Super Bowl has similar similarities. How stupid, redundant. This is why this Super Bowl has similarities to the last one they lost. You got up a 10-point lead, albeit it wasn't late. It was early. Okay, fine. But still, 10-point lead. You get a great pick off Mahomes. They all celebrate in the end zone. I saw that. I was like, oh my God, deja vu. Don't do it. Don't go to the end zone, Jair. And they did it. They went to go celebrate in the end zone. What happened last time? Your offense was was mid, but also your defense held Mahomes for 90%, 95% of the freaking game. Like, I did not think I remember I almost wrote a story like, hey, what are the chances of the 49ers defense this year replicate what they did last year? 4 years ago. And I'm like, nah,
we did not think that.
We talked about that. We talked about it.
Thought that the way that they would win was yeah.
So to me, it's like you guys had the best performance.
They're going to fire Steve.
They're going to fire him because those final. It's just, to me, it's like, yeah, fire him, because if you don't trust your guy and you keep undermining him, it's going to be all these things. It's going to prevent Kyle Shanahan from being the best he can do at his job, which is on offense. And then the players are going to. It's just, there's just too much now, man. Where it's just, what do you do from here? Like, what are you going to do? How do you address right coaching changes, your personnel changes? You pick mentally, how do you pick yourself up as a unit from this heartbreak? I don't know how you can say they're going to come back hungry. I mean, of course they will be. There'll be a baseline of it. But how do you get your – my cousin said something to me.
You're going to get better. right?
You're a 49ers fan. How about this? Like, how does the regular season at this point, like, how do you
Doesn't
still get
matter.
excited for it?
No,
Doesn't
it
matter.
doesn't matter. You're not gonna. It has zero implications on how they're gonna perform in the playoffs. I think for me as a 49ers fan, like the season doesn't matter until the playoffs start. Like I need to see how they're going to perform against in the Super Bowl. How are they going to perform?
It's
Because
officially
how
like
they
Warriors
perform,
now.
they can go on a giant winning streak all season long. And I don't expect that that's going to be the same team that shows up in the playoffs. And in the biggest games, I don't know if I can trust Kyle Shanahan, and I don't know if I can trust the stars to show up. And I don't know how the players build themselves up to trust in. Like, I think that what you have to do is, if you're someone who believes in Kyle Shanahan and that he eventually will win the Super Bowl, because what he's always kind of compared to is Andy Reid, who had similar struggles and then eventually found Patrick Mahomes and
He's
did start winning
officially the
Super
Andy
Bowls.
Reid. He's officially the Andy.
Yeah.
He's officially the early 2000s Andy Reid of this generations. He's the 2020s Andy Reid from 2000s. It's official now. It's written. He's now
We're
it.
making Israel sad. This is like the fourth time he's put broken hearts in the chat. And then really quick, Al Bundy says CMC will be 28 next year, so the odds of drop off or an injury are even higher. I agree. I think when the 49ers traded for him, the reason that people had problems with it was because of his intense injury history. How lucky the 49ers have been to
2 straight years.
have such a healthy season, or healthy seasons for him, like where he hasn't had anything catastrophic happen.
He was an MVP finalist, Offensive Player of the Year. What are the odds he's going to replicate that?
Offensive Player of the Year. Offense. Now, I guess what do you think, like, what they're going to do is they're going to draft that offensive line. They're going to try to beef up that position. I don't know. Like, to me, I think that that's another reason you have to fire Steve Wilks. You have to fire someone, and they're probably going to fire Steve Wilks. Is I don't know how you convince yourself that you can run it back with this team and be better. Like, I think if they would have won, you would have been like, okay, well, this is good enough. So we can like just make small adjustments. But right now it's like, okay, well, this clearly isn't good enough. So are we going to do freaking revenge tour number 8 now? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's not working. So you have to drastically change something. Your formula isn't working anymore. Same thing, Brock Purdy. I didn't think he played a bad game, and maybe I need to rewatch it because you said that you thought he maybe even played better than decent.
Mm-hmm.
But going into this game, I said, like, being a game manager, isn't going to be enough for Brock Purdy. He needs to not only not put the ball in harm's way, but going against a star like Patrick Mahomes, that eventually Patrick Mahomes is going to make a splash play. So you need to make one too. Like, you need to, the fact that they didn't, that's why I keep saying, like, in hindsight, I should have known that they weren't going to win the game coming off of that first quarter. Because when you're that lucky against that Chiefs team and you don't capitalize, like, you have to assume that eventually the Chiefs are going to kick it into gear, and you need to like get up on them enough to feel like you can like negate some of that. I don't know. There was also a commentator that did say like he thought Steve Wilks should go because of all the zero blitzes. I did think, when you were watching the game, did you feel like they were playing way too far off? I didn't really understand that game plan strategy.
The
like
last drive in the regulation
the
was a little
Chiefs,
too far
the
off.
Chiefs have excelled in that 10 to 15 yard range all year. Like, I understand that maybe it's scary to like let him go deep on you, but like no matter what you do against Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be scary. I don't know. And then also really quick, Al Bundy says, why is everyone writing off Greenlaw? He'll be back in 6 to 8 months, not 12 to 14.
I think you're confused on what an Achilles tear is.
Yeah, Achilles are a huge deal. You might be like going off of like Aaron Rodgers, who like watched whales have sex
Lied
and
about
pretended to be
coming back,
but he didn't even come back. Like, that was like all for show. Like, he never actually came back.
It's been 5 months for I mean, look, it's one thing to
also difference between quarterback and linebacker. Like, Dre Greenlaw is running up and down the field.
I just hope he doesn't become this generation's version of Navarro Bowman, which it kind of felt like that NFC Championship game from 10 years ago, right? You're dominating well, you're the better team, and then it just takes like several bad drives for it to go wrong. One of your best players in defense has a significant injury, who was the motor of your team, sucks the life out of you guys, and it's like, I'm just heartbroken for him. But honestly, it's like another thing that adds a similarities to why the Super Bowl felt like the one from 4 years ago is that everything that went wrong did again go wrong after you guys played menacingly. The offense wasn't their best. Special teams turnover that gives them favorable field position to score a touchdown. One of your best defensive players goes out, which of course, like his loss stung, but it didn't feel like, you know, the defense dropped off with him out of there. I mean, I would say Dre
But I
Gilmore
did
coming in
see,
clutch.
I think it was Coach Yak, like on Twitter, he talked about George Odom was targeted 9 times, allowed 9 catches, allowed a touchdown, allowed 130, I think 7 passer rating. So maybe didn't feel like a huge difference, but potentially was a huge difference in that game, considering how close the score was at the end.
Burks really got exposed mainly on the final 2 drives. And the touchdown allowed was the one where it's like you're already in a screwed position where the Chiefs are automatically in your red zone. You just had a defensive series like a minute ago. So it's like, it just was really felt in the final 2 drives, I believe. Because look, the defense was fine. Look, more than fine. They were great. Like, I was like, what the hell is this defense? Where the hell was this guy? Where are these guys at? And like, why is he the one? I just know I would not have banked on the defense showing up and the offense as the one not showing up, or just they were just underwhelming.
We talked about that was going to be the difference between the game compared to 2019. We were like expecting that the defensive performance was not going to be that dominant, and that the offense was going to carry.
Offense with Purdy like not having a good 4 quarters either, and that sure enough was the deal. And now again, like this time it wasn't necessarily him being the reason why he didn't show up. It felt like to me more of a Baltimore Ravens again, where the offensive play caller, Kyle Shanahan, is getting beat by the defensive coordinator. They couldn't handle the physicality. He didn't have an answers to really mitigate that physicality or get his guy. Like it just to me, like, yeah, what I don't understand. Like, I don't like his simple drop back passing game. It is what it is. Like you mentioned today, like, or from his press conference today, that he still doesn't have regrets on his game plan, that he thought it was good. And it's because, like, yeah, he thought it was good because he couldn't think of anything else. That's what he knows. It's just hike anticipation or a shot play that gets a defender to bite on someone underneath. And it's just like that. It's just pretty much it. That's why the run game is so key, because it's like, okay, now
deflating.
The formations that they do the run calls in, they call pass plays out of that. And because they were able to stonewall almost every carry, that's why it's pretty much, well, now we got to go empty set. We got to flood the numbers, flood the zones, maybe get some pick. And it didn't work. It didn't work. Like he didn't have any answers for it at all. And like, again, the players can beat it, but it's like, we can't expect Debo to win on like 8-yard, double move routes. Like that's not his game. We know
you
it's
have
not
to
his
know
game.
your personnel, right?
I feel like this should have been more of a George Kittle game, because he could have exposed their safeties and linebackers. That's one thing I want to look more to. I think that all 22 is out. I don't do too much all 22s really. I don't like to claim that I'm a film expert like that.
There's a guy, Jackson Kruger, who did a video specifically on George Kittle and had a lot of criticism for him.
Did he? Okay, well, see, that's what I want to see. Like, okay, what routes were they running him? Was he winning? Were they good routes and he's just getting sunned? Because I know for sure there were several clips that I saw at him run blocking that he wasn't good. He wasn't. Yeah. He wasn't good in block. So to me, it's like, yeah, your best players were not your best players. And the fact that Juwan Jennings was on the verge of being a Super Bowl MVP tells you all you need to know about how the offense
yeah,
looks.
like a prop, like you're like good for him, but also like he should
and
never.
And that's why I say like Brock Purdy was not good enough.
Were like the best players. And you're like, well, that's an issue for the 49ers. If you would have told me that, I would not have expected them to perform well.
What a day.
I want to switch the topic a little bit. I just sent you that video for anyone who wants to watch it. It's like an 8-minute video. This is our time, so don't watch it now. But I'm watching. Pretty like it's not too intensive. So if you're not like a huge all 22 person, you'd still be able to understand it. But it's guy Jackson Kruger. I've really enjoyed him because I feel like he breaks down things that are simple enough for me to understand, but also he's breaking down the film, and it's about 8 minutes talking why did George Kittle only have 4 yards and 2 targets in the Super Bowl. But really quick, I wanted to change topics a little bit. As Observe Natural Evolution talks about 8 passing plays coming out of the half, as we've seen a ton.
I didn't mind it. I really didn't. Like, I get it. Like, I get it. To me, it's like, what was the difference would have been if they ran it more? It would have been the same thing as part of the second and first quarter where they're not getting anything. They weren't. It just feels like revisionist history. Like, were you guys not like seeing that they were struggling on first down? Like, again, Ted Wynn's my favorite guy on anything breaking down games, and he said the five plays in the first half when the 49ers got into their base in terms of like their favorite running plays, 5 plays, 12 yards, 5 plays, 12 yards. And so I think going to the half, Shannon's like,
you're like, that's unacceptable.
They're loading up the boxes. Our motions aren't doing good. Our guys are whiffing or getting beat on blocks. We got to try to like make them pay for that. We got to make them pay for that. And it wasn't working because Spagnuolo ended up starting blitzing more, and L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie were turned into the second coming of Darrelle Revis each. And I mean, look, McDuffie was an all-pro for a reason, and Sneed honestly kind of felt like he was a snub too as an all-pro. Like I always said, and actually I think I forgot to mention earlier, but like I said, when my fellow media members were asking me who's my pick, and I was saying Chiefs, I would mention the defense, but I also said like, hey, look, like the offense will have their fits for sure because that Chiefs secondary is damn good. They're underrated. Like, I feel like people don't know how
to. It was supposed to be like a strength against a strength. Like, I felt like it was 49ers skill position strength against Chiefs defense strength. The problem was I didn't even feel like the 49ers skill positions put up like a fight like I thought they were going to. I thought it was going to be like more of like a tight battle where the Chiefs just won that battle of the
it wasn't like back and forth. It was just
and whether or not I think some of that is player execution. I think some of that is on Kyle Shanahan. Like if you see things aren't working, change your game plan. Spagnuolo talked about how he made in-game adjustments because Brock Purdy was beating their zone blitzes, and he had to make adjustments. And Brock Purdy, after the game, talked about when he was asked, like, was there changes, like something that you didn't expect? He said that he was expecting them to play them a lot, how other teams had, but that they played a lot more man coverage. And that's an adjustment. Like both of them were talking at the same time. And if you listen to their press conferences later, that's an adjustment that Spagnuolo said that he made. And that's he's won a Super Bowl 4 times now, 4-time champion, gave Brock Purdy his credit and said that he had to make in-game adjustments. Kyle Shanahan, why are you not adjusting in the game? Why are you saying like, I thought my game plan was good going into the Super Bowl. Okay, well, while you're watching the game and it's not working, start adjusting. Don't say, oh, well, I thought it was just going to be a freaking, because his reasoning, we'll get into it later on, but his reasoning for the overtime decision, as he just said in that press conference, was, oh, it seemed like it was more of a field goal game. It's never a field goal game against Patrick Mahomes. If you think it's a field goal game, you're doing something wrong. George Kittle came out after when I said that it looked like George Kittle felt very deflated. And he said, you can't play a field goal game against Patrick Mahomes. You're going to lose. If you're accepting, and Kyle Shanahan had just accepted that instead of being like, I need to change something because eventually this isn't going to be enough. He was just like, oh, we're both just going to trade field goals back and forth and I'm going to win that way. That should never be your conclusion against that quarterback, ever.
That's exactly right.
Do you want to talk? Let's talk about overtime before, and then we'll end on the Brandon Aiyuk drama. But do you think that Kyle Shanahan knew the overtime rules? Because the players absolutely did not. Blah, blah, blah.
You tried backtracking today.
Kyle Shanahan. Oh my God. Yeah, he did. Kyle Shanahan today in his press conference said that he didn't feel like it was necessary to let his players know, but that the position coaches were supposed to talk to them about it. Eric Armstead said that he didn't know about the overtime rules until they were posted in the stadium. Kyle Juszczyk said he had no idea. Kyle Shanahan himself, there's a clip that went viral that said that he thought if he scored a touchdown, that Patrick Mahomes didn't get the ball. So Kyle Shanahan admitted that he at least had the rules wrong. And I don't know. To me, it's a bad look because he was drunk getting into the game, drunk on Super Bowl Media Week. You talked to him then. Like, I don't know how your team shows up unprepared. Chris Jones, like opposingly, talking about like compare and contrast. Chris Jones said that the Chiefs spent two separate practices and weeks talking about the overtime rules, preparing for all the situations, preparing for what would happen if the 49ers deferred.
Since
what
training
would their
camp.
Game plans? What would their game plan strategy be? What would happen if they kept the ball? What would their game plan be? By the way, Kyle Shanahan, the one who said, after the game, and he's since changed his stance, but after the game, he said that the reason he kept the ball, because I think it would have made sense if he would have said, our defense was just on the field, they need a break. He was asked 3 separate times, and I know that if you just watch the press conference now, he said a different thing, but right after the game, he was asked by three different reporters, did you make that decision because you wanted to give your defense a break? Each time he said no. And he explained that his reasoning was that if they both had scored, they would have gotten the ball for a third possession. But that's BS. Kyle Shanahan, he coaches not to lose. So he was thinking it from his perspective. And he's like, well, if I had the ball second and we both scored, I would then the other team would get the third possession because there's no way I'm going to go for two. Well, Chris Jones and Andy Reid both came out and said that no matter what, if they would have gotten that ball and scored a touchdown in the second half, that they would have gone for two because Andy Reid was going to go to sleep at night knowing that he put the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands and that they won and lost with his hands. They weren't going to leave it up to their defense and give the 49ers an extra opportunity. There was never going to be a third possession. And so apparently Kyle Shanahan was game planning for something that never was going to freaking happen. So I think in general, he didn't really know the overtime rules. Second of all, I think he completely didn't prepare his team, which is insane considering the stuff that these players put their body through. Eric Armstead saying he found out about it while he's on the field playing through a torn meniscus. Kyle Juszczyk saying that he didn't know about it. Brock Purdy saying he had to double check with Brian Griese on the field. If you look at the way that Steve Wilks was calling that defense, it looked like he didn't know what the fuck was happening either because he was just playing a ton of prevent defense the entire time. I don't know. I felt like the entire, especially overtime, the team looked super unprepared, which is a horrible look considering that they all decided that it was a good idea to go out and party their first week in Vegas.
I'm all for criticizing Shanahan in the overtime. But I do think, I'm all for criticizing Shanahan, but the overtime thing is kind of getting overblown to me. I think criticize him for not having his team knowing, sure, for sure, that part. But it sounded like to me like he knew, but he was overthinking it. Like he was thinking like, wait, you're that cocky to think your team's going to get a third possession or the second possession in overtime? You got to go score first, pal. What makes you think that's going to be easy? You've only scored 2 touchdowns. One of them happened because you went desperate deep into your bag to have Juwan Jennings throw it.
Because it's like the opposite logic. Like he always defers in the normal game. Like why would he have the same?
His logic was flawed, but the decision was right because of this. And actually, I was going to write that story yesterday, but I got too tired. I was so drained, so I'll write it after this. He made the right call in overtime, but the logic was flawed. 1,000% the logic was flawed. And again, he even says, like, I didn't do it for the rest of my defense. But it's like, look, his logic was flawed. He was wrong on his logic. But at the end of the day, his decision was right. His decision was right. It gave the defense a rest. And now in hindsight, it's like, well, what good did that do? They still got one dog walk down the field. But it's like, hey, the point is in the moment, think, I want to give my defense a rest. I think everyone can say that's logical. They just pretty much had like an 10 play drive where Mahomes.
And today, that's what he said. Today, he was like, oh, well, like, analytically, they said to do that. Also, like, it's not bad to get the defense a rest. And then John Lynch came in.
I'm just using quotes from after the game.
Yeah, you have to think about it that way. You want to rest the defense. And it's like, well, where was that fucking excuse 2 days ago? What do you mean?
That's why it's like pretty much like they're all just pretty much walking it back, all PR now. But no, like to me, it's like I don't blame it too much because even if he or the players didn't know, what did that matter? They didn't score a touchdown on the first drive. They didn't. And to me, it's like against Mahomes, you have to score a touchdown no matter what the rules are. You got to score that touchdown, whether you win automatically or whether they get the ball back next. You have to score a touchdown. Field goals aren't gonna be enough. And to me, it's like I just don't get it. What are the rules? What does it matter? What does it matter? Because at the end of the day, they got to score a touchdown. The Niners have to stop them from scoring a touchdown or any points. To me, I don't get it. I kind of feel like this is just piling on because it's like, how could you not know in the biggest game? And it's like, yeah, it's kind of a bad look, but that's not remotely close why they lost. I think if we look back to why they lost is because he was getting punked by Steve Spagnuolo, and then especially on those 2 3rd down and 4 plays in the end of regulation and their last drive in overtime, the special teams fumble. The McCaffrey fumble was huge. And I've seen people say the counter to that is like, well, the Chiefs didn't score points. Yeah, you know who else did it on that drive that was bound to score points? The freaking Niners. Like, what do you mean? That was detrimental. That was going to be a touchdown. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to say that was a touchdown. That was happening. And then Moody, how do you get your point after attempt blocked? That one point could everything. And I know I've seen like, well, they had a good point by they pushed the offensive line. Like, yeah, but Moody kicks that low. That looked like a low kick to me. And you know what's funny?
Yeah.
The
I
first
thought that was not going to make it in, whether or not it got blocked.
So yeah, like to me, it's like, you know how many times?
I think you're the one that tweeted that, right? Like going into overtime, you were like, imagine if Jake Moody just made that kick, right? Because then they just won.
Yeah. I said something like that at one point. So look, if he makes the kick, we're not having that conversation. We're not. But I think also like
it doesn't matter if they don't know the rules because they
maybe if that's the case though, look, the Chiefs are trying for a touchdown. Then the Chiefs are trying for a touchdown on that because I was kind of confused on why the Chiefs didn't try one more touchdown play with 6 seconds left. I was like, wait, that's enough time for you guys. Why not just try one? You know, that was a little confusing to me. So they could have won the game in that aspect. I guess they just wanted to play it safe. But yeah, well, there were just so many key points to what you can look at from that game, and overtime is not even top 10 of them to me.
Okay, I agree with that. And do you, since we brought him up, do you blame Jake Moody? Like, do you have confidence in him being the kicker next year? Because he did make that vital mistake, but then he came back. He made the most important kicks. He makes the kick right before overtime, and then he makes the kick in overtime. How funny. He like breaks the Super Bowl record, right? And then immediately Harrison Butker breaks it. That was kind of funny.
Yeah, that game was just everything. Like the missed extra point. You couldn't convert on those 2 3rd and 4s at critical moments. You couldn't capitalize on interceptions and fumbles. You couldn't avoid your own fumbles from your best player on the team. Man, there's just so much. There's just so much where you can go. And
I think that Ray one ends up being like really critical too. A lot of people are saying, like, "Oh, don't blame him because it like hit Luter's foot." But there's no way. Like he went on social media, which I don't understand why all these players are freaking on social media right now.
Yeah, that's like, embarrassing. That's a bad look.
But he went on social media like, "That's not my fault. Like you obviously don't watch film," and it's like, okay, maybe you're not the one that fumbled it, but fall on the ball.
Yes, you could argue.
They teach you to fall on the ball. They don't teach you to freaking scoop it up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just he probably should have fell on it. It's like, well, this is already a disaster. Let me fall on it versus like, because picking it up is really hard. So yeah, he probably not even in hindsight. It's just probably just fall on it because
I think that's like what they teach you, right? Like to me, that's a pretty basic. I think they teach you. I think
it's basically like if there's no one next to you, pick it up and take it. But like if there's surrounding players, just get on it and just save yourself. Yeah.
Speaking of social media, really quick, maybe before we get into Brandon Aiyuk, did you see that John Feliciano, in trying to stick up for Colton McKivitz, like I think he was trying to make Colton McKivitz look good, but he ends up making Spencer Burford look bad. There was a viral clip of people blaming McKivitz for a missed block that could have won the game if Brock Purdy had like one more second. Jennings is open. Aiyuk is open in the end zone. And Purdy gets hit immediately because Chris Jones, their best players, left unblocked. People are blaming Colton McKivitz. John Feliciano, hours after the Super Bowl, tweets that tweet and says basically like, I know you guys know better and that's not McKivitz's fault. Burford then logs on and says, dang, this is like the first thing I see right when I log on. John Feliciano blaming, telling everyone it was his fault. Then a couple hours later, he came back and said, like, my bad, I was hungover.
I'm sorry, I'm drunk. Like, what the hell? What does that mean?
Just a mess. You got Charvarius Ward
going at everyone.
Same thing with Jair Brown. Also, he was telling the Sauce Gardner said something like the 49ers couldn't hang. And he was like, the Jets suck. Like, don't talk. I don't know. To me, not a great look for all these players to be on social media hours after. Like, I feel like your mindset should be like, you can't hate from the club, like outside the club if you can't get in. Like, you should act like you're above that, in my opinion.
I will say in the regards of like,
especially the offensive line things, but throwing your own players, maybe responding. I can kind of understand the younger players responding to like Sauce Gardner. Because if you think about how they handled the NFC loss and then the Eagles losing to the Chiefs last year, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, they were all celebrating. So they're all learning from each other. And if the veterans have that mindset, I have a hard time blaming like the rookies, but at least like if you're gonna clap back to other teams, I don't necessarily think it's a great look, but okay. But don't throw your own teammate under the bus. You know what I mean? Like even if you're trying to attempt to save someone else, like let Spencer Burford do that himself. Don't you be the person to do that. Especially weren't John Feliciano and Spencer Burford like competing for that spot all year round? I just feel like that shows like weird tension.
It's just Feliciano, that's your chance of winning the Super Bowl, and like the guy who's like next to you, you're almost in an understanding way. It's like, dude, you guys, they pretty much are like, you cost us the damn Super Bowl because you just the thing you've been failing at all season long is why, and we see why they no longer did the little shuffling ways. Burford's not good. He's not. I don't care if it's not. I don't care if he's losing to Chris Jones. The point is, like, dude, like, how do you have a mental breakdown? It's one thing to get physically beaten. Like, I get it. Like, those are off-season
Yeah,
things.
that was like not a physical problem.
But you're getting mental lapses like that. Like, what the hell? Like, that's where it's like, that's where it falls on the player and on coaching and just like, again, who picked this player? Kyle Shanahan did. He picked him. He picked him. So
yeah, and they've stuck with him for like multiple years now, trying to do that like sub in, sub out thing on the offensive line. Well, I want to switch, and I want our last topic to be a victory lap for me because I talked about just kidding. But I did talk about how I thought Aiyuk was unhappy like over a month ago. I've actually mentioned it multiple times throughout the year, but I really
talking about he was
made
unhappy. Like, what led you to say that a month ago? Because I was like, when the hell was he unhappy? I was so confused.
They in the end of year press conference, like the regular season press conference, he was asked if he was like happy with his production, and he said no, he was disappointed, and that he felt like he had a really bad like personal year, didn't meet his goals, didn't have the opportunity to meet his goals, and then like reporters were like, oh, what the fuck, like I can't believe he just said that, and they were like,
a month ago or last year.
No, a month ago. This at the end of this regular season. It was a crazy press conference that like no one like for some reason made a big deal about. They made multiple videos about it.
Is that the press conference when they asked him about like how would win the Super Bowl mean for you guys for Trent Williams since this is first? And he's like, what do you mean? What about me? That's my first. Was that?
Yeah. I think it was that.
Wow, really? Okay, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow, and I thought I watched that start to finish. Actually,
multiple times said that he didn't meet his own personal goals, that he was disappointed, that he didn't have the opportunity to meet his own personal goals and stuff like that. And then to like follow up for that, like a media member was like, even though you didn't maybe live up to what you wanted, like everyone else is so impressed with your year, the 49ers are probably clearly so impressed and trying to thank you. Have they reached out and tried to talk to you about like contract offers? And he goes, my agent has been calling, but I haven't picked up. And I made a bunch of videos and I was like, I feel like Brandon Aiyuk is saying he's unhappy and like trying to start some sort of like, you better raise your offer because I'm the fourth option on this team and I'm not happy about it, whatever.
Or like,
and people were like, you're reaching. Well, turns out I'm not reaching. For anyone who doesn't have Twitter, basically, I think everyone in here probably does except for my dad. But Brandon Aiyuk's long-term girlfriend and baby mama, I feel like that's maybe derogatory. The mother of his child. But they've been dating forever. She went on social media. She's also made comments about this for like multiple seasons, being like, I don't know if we're gonna be here and stuff. But she said, she was doing a day in the life, the last day when they came back from the Super Bowl. She was talking about how it was a really sad, shameful day and how she had to go to the stadium to pick up Brandon Aiyuk with her son. And she said, oh, it's really sad because it's the last time that me and Braylon, a lot of people were like, see, she's not talking about Aiyuk. That's their son. That her and Braylon might go to the facility because they aren't sure that they're going to be here next year. So she makes a TikTok about that. Then Brandon Aiyuk posts on his Instagram. Let me get the exact wording. I have a screenshot of it. If I was really smart, I would figure out how to put this on the screen, but I don't know how to do that yet. But Brandon Aiyuk made an Instagram story that said, don't forget what got you there with the eye emojis. And then Brandon Aiyuk's best friend, a guy who he considers his brother, calls his brother. So they're very, very close. He's been in Instagram stories, gone to all the games for years, lived with Brandon Aiyuk in where did he go to college? Arizona.
Mhm.
Now lives with them in San Jose. This guy says, why does your all-pro receiver, all-pro 1,300-yard receiver have 3 catches in the Super Bowl? Question mark, eye emoji. Then in a different story, eye emoji. This is the exact reason why we are leaving San Francisco. Thank you, 49ers, for drafting my brother. We are forever grateful. BA to Vegas. Now, the problem is Brandon Aiyuk, he had his 5th-year option picked up, so I don't know if he's going to demand a trade or what. But all these things happened less than 48 or 24 hours after the Super Bowl. They were
So
on
much Niners
Instagram
drama.
starting all this.
Holy.
I know. I was like, I texted a friend. I was like, oh, I'm kind of sad that the season's over. Like, it's going to be hard. Right back to it. Right back to it.
I mean,
what was your takeaway? Like, did you see those things on Instagram, on Twitter?
yeah, I saw them all. Look, I think Aiyuk, because what's the thing that's typical about wide receivers, especially star ones, is the majority of them are always divas. Going back to Terrell Owens, right? Randy Moss, Stephon Diggs now. AJ Brown this year was being a freaking little child. And that's the thing about wide receivers. They're the biggest divas in all of football, of all sports, for sure. That's why it's kind of crazy to see Deebo Samuel doesn't really act like a diva. I mean, like a diva. He kind of keeps it real, doesn't cry about touches and stuff like that. Where this, in a way, it's like Aiyuk's basically, he's trying to avoid doing that by having other people do it for him, because he thinks if they do it, then I'm not a crybaby. But it's like, we know you're the ones that are telling him, or we know that they're, or at least you're the ones that are, you're the one that's conveying your frustration to them, and they feel the need to talk for you. It's, well, first of all, no matter what, just say it with your chest. Don't.
By the way, to me, it's 1,000% orchestrated. I like.
And then number 2, he's not necessarily wrong in terms of, why aren't you forcing feeding me? He's basically saying, like, look, I think I am the second best player on this team, or the best player, after McCaffrey or next to McCaffrey. Why aren't you guys looking at me? And it kind of felt like there weren't necessarily, if we're talking about Kyle Shanahan, like, where's the sole focus as Aiyuk being the primary guy? And you can look at the times where it's like, where he was opening the end zone, Purdy kind of overthrows him and he slows down, like, whatever you want a case to be. So maybe at that point it's like, I can't go to Brandon. Or it just felt like, so, like, you weren't going to him enough. Even in the last 2 games, the Packers and Lions game, none of them were big Brandon Aiyuk breakout games. None of them.
No.
And to him, I think he's just like, all right, dude, like, what the hell? Like, I want to be the one. Like, I'm pretty sure he's looking back like, man, if they used me more, we could have won. I'm pretty sure he feels that. And that's the way it looks at. And of course, part of this also, like, pay me now too at the same time. But I think he's the guy who just wants the ball, because he's someone who's really hard to guard. Like, again, that's why I really want to see, like, some all 22. You already mentioned Kittle. I don't know if this guy
got open, right?
See if Aiyuk got open. There were times where it's like, hey, like, and look, there's gonna be plays where he's getting open, but they're not looking at that side of the field. If I see just a couple of instances where it's like, okay, he was getting open early, why didn't Kyle go to him? Like, he was winning his matchups. Or maybe it's going to be instances where he got open a couple times early. That's why I took the shot and it wasn't there, and he didn't go back to him again. But like, it just kind of felt like he just threw his hands up and said, all right, Deebo's getting clamped up, which is expected. I would never have picked Deebo to win true wide receiver bouts with Trent McDuffie or L'Jarius Sneed.
He's a guy who needs to get schemed open. But usually Aiyuk isn't.
Anticipation, like you said, that, and I think that's why they studied the new things. And it just felt like there weren't enough, like, quick outlets to Deebo to let him be more of a yak guy. I know they tried a couple of handoffs with him, or 3 of them. The third one worked pretty well. 2 of them got snuffed out easily, and it just didn't feel like, it kind of felt like either they gave up too fast on Shanahan on some plays, or wasn't you like, it was just a combination of it all, really.
Yeah. Really quick, from Brandon Aiyuk's interview from today. So those things happened late last night. And then, and by the way, no one's really talking about this, but his girlfriend also made it, like, she posted 2 TikToks at once. Her first TikTok was recapping the Super Bowl, and she went, we just lost another, and then went, like, said F, but then, like, stopped. And then she said, let me hold myself back. We just lost the Super Bowl. Like, and she had, I don't know if you've heard this TikTok sound, that's like a viral sound, and it's "Coach, run the ball," and her and like a bunch of the wives all like did that to that sound. So she was like expressing frustration about the game in general. But Brandon Ayuk and a lot of people were in my comments like saying, she was trouble or something. In my opinion, Brandon Ayuk's best friend and his basically wife are saying these things, and Brandon Ayuk is either telling them to say them directly or at least talking to them about it and completely fine with them saying it. But Brandon Ayuk in his interview today was asked, "Is it your hope to remain with the 49ers?" And Brandon Ayuk says, "If that's the right move, yeah." So not, "Yeah, my hope is to remain with the 49ers." Not, "Yes,
Speaking
I
of
want to be there."
non-committal,
Yeah,
he was
like we were just talking
non-committal.
about Kyle Shanahan with Steve Wilkes, right? So he said, "If that's the right move, yeah." A reporter says, "What would the right move for you look like?" Brandon Ayuk, "Being a champion." Brandon, and then they ask him a couple more questions. Then someone says, "Brandon, what are you going to remember most about this season?" He starts crying and he said, "Just guys that came in and worked to be champions every single day." So he's definitely taking it hard that they didn't win the Super Bowl. And I definitely felt like that response was extremely non-committal, extremely, "My price is going up." This guy says
And I want to
Brandon
be
Ayuk is
featured.
going to get 27 to 29 million a year.
He is more than that, probably. But I'm
Yeah,
not
he's
looking
going to
at
want
the
that for
annual. I
sure.
want to look at the guarantee, because the guarantees that Debo got was what, like 70, 72, something like that. If Ayuk's gonna get that and then some, because number one, inflation now, things, what do they say in rap? The price of the brick is going up, right? The stocks are going up a little bit, so the way it's moving, that's gonna be more. He's probably 80 million guaranteed, and he is the better wide receiver, 1,000%, and his game will last longer. So if you're the 49ers, you definitely have to invest in him, because Debo's impact is a short-lived one, because he gets injured. It's not sustainable the way he plays. We've already seen it. And he just gets erased when you need to really have a true drop-back passing game. So, I mean, look, we're talking about, like we talked about earlier, about like this core. Can they get it done? We're lacking confidence now. He definitely would be a player that they would consider or have to consider trading, right? I don't think his contract's tradable. I think they'd be still on the hook for a large amount. So he's probably not getting traded. But if it was doable, you definitely think he'd be one
Brandon
of the top
Ayuk,
of the
I think
list.
they can trade right now.
Ayuk, they can, yeah. They
Yeah.
definitely can. And
I
of
know
course,
that I know that with Deebo Samuel, isn't it? It's not. It's his. He has like a ton of dead cap. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, so I think he can't get traded until like 2025 or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
pretty much not, unless, like, I don't know, I don't know. There's always ways you can always mend things, but for the most part, yeah, he's pretty much stuck. But yeah, it's like Ayuk's a player you don't want to get rid of. He's the better block. He blocks in running games. He can be your go time winner against top corners, where we just saw like Debo can't do that. He can't. He's great with the ball in his hands, but Aiyuk does something that can really keep Brock Purdy more optimized. Where Debo keeps the offense flowing for the most part, Aiyuk does kind of that, but also optimizes, keeps Brock. I mean, excuse me, gets optimized by
He's the
Purdy, and it's
most
a good
like,
connection.
I know people kind of hate this, and I've even gone through phases where I hate it, but he's like the most true wide receiver that the 49ers have.
He is.
Like he can go deep, he can route run. Like Deebo Samuel is definitely more of a gadget guy, for
He
sure.
is gadget, yeah, for sure. That's why he got shut down in every route that went past 5 or 8 yards. Like, he can't do it. He's not a good route runner. He's just a guy. But with the ball in his hands and with some space, good luck.
That
Good luck. You're not catching him or stopping him. Like, he makes impact that way.
that being said, though, we have seen younger wide receivers kind of show out recently in the NFL, and we've seen them have a lot of success. Now, a big problem is Kyle Shanahan has zero faith in rookies and does not play them unless he's like strangleheld to. I don't know if I said that right, but his preference is not to play them. But do you think, like, would you be open to listening to offers on Brendan Aiyuk if he is serious about potentially wanting a trade? Or would you be like, you're going to at least play out on your 5th-year option?
If you're going to trade Aiyuk, it has to be for a top 20 pick that's going to give you a prominent offensive lineman on that right side. Because one of the things I felt like yesterday while I was watching the game and the way looking at stats and just my feel of everything I've gathered is, you know what? the Niners are probably a better team if they have a really, really good offensive line and a decent skill position,
players.
and a decent skill position players versus a decent offensive line and a really, really good offensive skill position
Yeah.
players.
Because
Because how they're built right now,
what are
they
they
have
worth when
really
you can't get
good,
them the ball?
yeah, they have really good / almost elite, or if not elite, skill position players and a decent offensive line. And as good as it is, it shows that if they face like a good aggressive defensive line, defensive fronts, because look, again, the Chiefs don't have this elite defensive front. Like they have like 2, 3. They have one phenomenal player, 2 pretty good ones, and the rest are decent. And they made enough impact. They made Trent Williams look like a guy for a couple of plays. So to me, it's like if you invest very hard in that set and into that offensive line, where it's now all of a sudden Purdy has all this time, and the interior is not going to get blown up. Because one of the points that someone made that I listened or read about is like, look, when that interior gets blown up, that's when Purdy's deficiencies with his physical abilities, his height really gets blown off because he can't throw like comfortably off his, how he should be, and things are inaccurate. Yeah. The balls are falling flat. He can't see. Balls are getting batted. So it's like, okay,
he can't run because someone, yeah.
Now let's try to figure what's going to help him. That offensive line, not Deebo Samuel running 17 yards down the field. Get him off. Because this is where you have Kyle Shanahan who can scheme open guys, right? You can't scheme your offensive line open. Either you're going to get beat or not.
Like if you just played a game where if you just played a game where Juwan Jennings and Chris Conley are like your best players, that kind of shows you that with decent time, like there was times where Brandon Aiyuk was getting open, where Juwan Jennings was getting open, but they couldn't get them the ball because of the pass protection. Give him a couple more seconds, maybe he can make a more accurate throw, and the skill level of the wide receiver would matter a little bit less. Also, like, I mean, it's just hard because it's such a crapshoot, right? So like you obviously don't want like a Javon Kinlaw situation where you trade away Buckner and you get a guy who can't keep up that production. And I don't really think you're gonna, like, you shouldn't go into it, and fans shouldn't go into it putting pressure on whatever wide receiver they draft to be Brandon Aiyuk. It's just, can he be a solid wide receiver while they can use their earlier picks, that first round pick, on an offensive lineman, and then draft like the wide receiver in the second round or something. But it's also, it would be on Kyle Shanahan to be able to have trust in him. Someone in here said, don't forget we have Danny Gray. He's fast on his hands. He can't.
Oh, come on. Danny Gray is not mentionable at this point. They could have.
He was healthy and they did not bring him back. He
easily could have played this year. They chose him, said, nah, we're good off you. Yeah. Like, let's not freaking bang on hope for a guy who doesn't have more than 6 catches in his career, if that.
Yeah, he was fast, and I understood the reason to like take a flyer on him, but no. So far, no, at least. Al Bundy said Cooper Kupp got 3 years, $80 million in March. Brandon Aiyuk will want to be paid. I think CeeDee Lamb is up for a contract. I think he'll want to be paid as much as that, because I think in his opinion, if he was in an offense that featured him the way that the Cowboys feature CeeDee Lamb, he would have the same amount of production or better. I think that Brandon Aiyuk thinks really highly of himself. Fans kind of tend to think he's a little bit shy and maybe down to earth. I think that he has, like, not in a negative way, but like an ego to him. Like, I think he thinks really highly of himself, and I don't think he's going to settle, especially with all the doghouse, everything. Like, I think he would stay if he's compensated for it, but I don't think he's going to be doing any favors. You know what I mean? So that's
offseason is going to be fun.
Do you think, now 49ers they have a tendency to kind of overvalue their players. Do you think that Brandon Aiyuk can get a first and a second? I don't. I think he can get a first,
he can get a fourth,
maybe a first, and like a later first.
It would probably be even. You get a first and you give up one of your thirds.
Turns into a third next year or some shit.
No, I think it would be like, hey, we'll give us your first. We'll give you Aiyuk and one of our comp thirds. I think that would be enough, because you got to remember you got to throw in maybe a little kicker.
He's going to get paid too.
Exactly, because the team that's receiving him is going to have to pay him. So that's like a twofer. It's not like you're getting him on an easy contract. It's like, all right, we'll give you a third because you got to pay him. Now, I won't kick in this next year, but we'll give you a kicker anyways, because those compensatory picks are coming to them like rainfall, like in California in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, I think you would probably do that. Or maybe you just you give him a third, and they
It's
give you your. I don't
snowing
know.
in.
There's always like weird things that are like kickers in these trade packages.
Is it raining there? It's snowing here like crazy. It was
It
raining in
was.
right? You told me it was raining in Vegas, right?
It was storming here a week ago, and it was storming in Vegas. The storms were bad. My power went out, and it didn't come back until like, even when I flew out the next day, it didn't come back. So
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I heard that about the team hotels that like people couldn't even stream there and stuff. Crazy. But anyways, is it nice there now in
it's okay.
California where you're at?
It's all right.
Okay. Well, we've been chatting for a bajillion years. I'm sure that the 49ers, in the 1 hour and 30 minutes that we've been on here, something else crazy has happened. So it's going to be an eventful offseason. Like we said, less than 24 hours into it, and Brandon Aiyuk already causing chaos, which I find funny. Like, people they were so like, you absolutely cannot trade him. And I knew that people were going to kind of switch it up like they did with Debo. And in my comments, people are already like, he's ungrateful, like blah blah. Like, fans are so up and down. Like, they do not like when these players want to get paid.
Someone told me in Christmas. Remember I told you about Christmas? I was getting dragged because I said I liked the idea. I said I didn't advocate for the Chiefs to do. I said I like the idea. Like, I would love to.
Yeah,
see
you said him
on the Chiefs.
The Chiefs should do
Like,
that.
if I'm the Chiefs, I would do that. And people are over here telling me, "Go kill yourself." They're like, "Jesus Christ, man!" So mad for. Sorry, I like to watch football other than the Niners.
So funny.
And guess
Everyone,
what?
please.
It looks like the Chiefs didn't need him because they whooped your team's ass without him. So that's for the people who are talking shit to me, by the way. So I can't wait to pull that back up. If he gets traded,
Jose does not forget. Jose does not forget.
No, I like to be petty because people like to be chesty when they don't have their face pictures on Twitter and stuff like that. But like, yeah, go say that to my face. Like, you wouldn't do that shit. So it's just funny to me. But I can't wait until if he gets traded or people start turning his back on him. I'm like, damn, remember people were hating me for this stuff. So I can't wait. I cannot wait.
Felt that I'm Roscoe Chris on Twitter. Love him. He's my friend. But he went in on me. He called into Eric Crocker's show and called me personally and was like, this is the stupidest take ever. Brandon Aiyuk is not unhappy. Like, he like read me when I had that take like a month ago, and I feel so justified. But I know he has COVID. He had COVID right now, so I haven't rubbed it in his face. But when I have the opportunity, I'm gonna be like, I was right. Just to be a little bit petty. Someone said, "Okay, man." LOL.
He-Man?
Okay. He-Man? I don't know. Anyways,
know.
Diggs got yeah, but one, I don't think, did Diggs get paid right away?
I think the Bills paid him, but
yeah.
Before he was great. He was great in Vikings too.
Yeah, he was amazing.
He became greater with the Bills.
I think he was better than Brandon Aiyuk when he was on the Vikings, don't you think?
Hell yeah, he was.
Yeah. Okay. But anyways, we could chat about this all season long, and we probably will. So make sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel because we're gonna have lots more where this is coming from. Definitely go subscribe to Jose. Definitely go follow Jose on Twitter or on Instagram so you can get access. He posts his articles. He's giving you upfront coverage. All off season, all next season. So make sure to hit like and subscribe. And late 80s cartoon He-Man was a joke. I just wasn't born then. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe my dad knows. You do?
Yeah.
Jose's
I think he's basically trying to joke around like, oh, look at him being chesty, but it's like, it's all right. It was a joke. It's fine.
He's chesty. What does chesty mean? Like braggadocious?
Like speaking with your chests, like trying to be like, oh, look at him trying to be all like tough guy. Basically, that's the way I interpret it.
I saw someone saying now that the 49ers have lost that they want to get buff, and that's going to be me, so Jose can stop making fun of me. Did you lift when you were in Vegas?
No, there's no time at all.
Look at that. Do you see that? There's like a little. Shut the fuck up.
I don't want to see your chopsticks. Your chopstick arm.
Look. Oh!
Stop embarrassing yourself. Get us out.
Oh! Anyway, sorry. I should have stopped. Everyone, please like and subscribe for great content like that. And make sure to follow Jose because we're very proud of him. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.